This is an immense country, the second largest in the world by area. It possesses enough landmass to accommodate all of Europe, yet nearly 90% of Canadians reside in a narrow strip along the American border. Why? This isn't solely a matter of climate. It's influenced by geology, history, economics, and something far more profound. Canada boasts world-class cities, but immediately beyond them lie thousands of kilometers of solitude. People gravitate south, leaving the north largely uninhabited. What forces confine millions of Canadians to this singular, narrow zone? And why does the south of the map glow so brightly, while the entire north appears as a black hole? Today, we will explore 5 surprising reasons why Canada resembles a country where everyone arrived and then simply stopped. It turns out that 90% of all Canadians, which equates to millions of individuals, live within this concentrated band, stretching only about 160 kilometers or 100 miles from the US border. This fact is not mere conjecture. It is substantiated by official Canadian statistics from Statistics Canada, the agency meticulously responsible for collecting all demographic data. This is not an exaggeration. It is the stark, unvarnished truth. Consider the entirety of Canada's remaining territory, an expanse of nearly 9 million square kilometers, a space that could comfortably house all of continental Europe. Ponder that scale. An entire nation, the second largest on Earth, with almost its entire population clustered in a border region, as if an unseen hand has drawn an immutable line. Canada's overall population density is, to put it mildly, modest. It averages just about 4 people per square kilometer. This implies that if you were to wander through the vast expanses of Canada's north, you might not encounter another soul for many hours, if not days. This is a far cry from the density familiar to residents of European metropolises, where life teems at every turn. However, return to this very strip of habitation, and the picture changes dramatically. Here, the population density surges to over 50 people per square kilometer. This presents an entirely different scenario. Such density is quite comparable to figures in countries like Germany or the United Kingdom, where every parcel of land is actively utilized. Cities seamlessly blend into one another, and fields give way to densely populated suburbs. It is this concentration that creates a sharp, almost surreal contrast with the country's uninhabited, near-pristine interior regions. If you switch Google Maps to satellite view, this southern strip literally illuminates with the lights of cities and roads, while north of it stretches an endless dark expanse of forests, lakes, and tundra, occasionally interrupted only by the slender thread of a highway or the solitary speck of a settlement. These are not just numbers. This is a landscape painted by geography itself and human choice. But why specifically here? Why not further north, where there seemingly is ample space and resources? The answer, as is often the case, lies in nature, and it is far more complex than a simple notion of Canadian winters. The primary reason is not so much the extreme cold, which incidentally Canadians are quite accustomed to and adept at managing, but rather the critically short growing season. This is the period of the year when the land is free from ice and snow and the air temperature is sufficiently high for plant growth. Imagine a farmer looking at their fields. They need not just warmth, but enough warm days for wheat to sprout, mature, and be harvested. North of that hypothetical line, 100 miles from the border, the number of frost-free days plummets. This renders large-scale agriculture, the bedrock of any civilization, virtually impossible.
While Toronto, situated in the south of the country, enjoys a comfortable growing season of 180 to 200 days, allowing for the cultivation of diverse crops. Yellowknife, the capital of the Northwest Territories, experiences a mere 100 days. During such a brief period, only moss and certain hardy northern berries can manage to grow. This is categorically insufficient for cultivating most key agricultural crops on an industrial scale, making life in these regions heavily reliant on food supplies from the south, and thus significantly more expensive. Furthermore, 50% of Canada's entire territory is covered by permafrost, meaning the ground has been frozen solid for thousands of years. Constructing on such terrain, laying down utilities, and establishing viable settlements present an engineering nightmare and incur colossal expenses. As climate scientists accurately observe when examining this vast, frozen expanse of land, it's not merely the cold, but the absence of crucial time for growth. In the north, stepping outside in winter, the air instantly sears the lungs, and snow lingers for months, sometimes until May or June. When it melts, it uncovers infertile earth, along with marshes and stones, because the water cannot penetrate the frozen ground. Adding to this climatic barrier is another, equally significant obstacle: the Canadian Shield. This is not just a geographical feature. It's a monumental, ancient geological structure occupying nearly half the country, approximately 5 million square kilometers. Imagine this. It's comparable in size to all of Europe, excluding Russia. The Canadian Shield represents the emergence of Earth's most ancient rock formations, created billions of years ago. In the distant past, colossal glaciers swept across this territory, acting like giant bulldozers that stripped away all the fertile topsoil. They left behind only bare, rugged rocks, countless lakes and bogs, interspersed with coniferous forests that cling to life with their roots in a thin layer of moss and meager soil. This region virtually lacks the fertile soil essential for agriculture, and consequently for widespread settlement. Building large cities, constructing roads, and erecting infrastructure here are exceedingly difficult, and most importantly, prohibitively expensive. Every foundation requires drilling into solid rock, and every utility line necessitates battling stone and permafrost. Despite these challenges, the Canadian Shield is one of the world's most mineral-rich regions. It is a source of nickel, gold, silver, copper, and numerous other valuable minerals. This is precisely why small, often temporary mining towns and settlements exist, springing up around deposits. These points on the map are like tiny islands of human activity within an ocean of wilderness. However, they are not places for mass habitation. They are more accurately described as industrial outposts, where people work on rotation, enduring harsh conditions for the sake of resource extraction. As geologists familiar with these areas wryly note, the Shield provides minerals, but takes away land for living. It is a source of immense wealth for the country. Yet it remains a vast, inaccessible territory where conditions for the permanent and comfortable existence of millions of people are simply absent. It acts like an invisible wall, reliably separating the southern, settled part of Canada from its immense, yet virtually uninhabited north. Why then do Canadians, owners of the second largest territory on the planet, not aspire to settle this boundless land? What invisible force keeps them confined to a narrow strip along the southern border? The answer lies not only in the harsh climate and inhospitable geology, but also in the very logic of the country's development, its historical arteries, and the powerful pull of its major cities. Canada's history is a narrative of eastward to westward movement, but not a chaotic one, rather a strictly directed progression. The first European colonists, arriving centuries ago, could not simply venture into the wild, impenetrable forests. They needed routes for transporting people, goods, and ideas. And these routes, akin to the blood vessels of a vast organism, ran close to the American border. Picture the French pioneers who began settling these lands in the 17th century. They carried heavy packs containing seeds, tools, and dreams of a new life. Their primary guide and provider became the St. Lawrence River. This majestic waterway, originating in the Great Lakes and emptying into the Atlantic Ocean, was more than just a river. It was the main transportation artery for boats carrying furs, early agricultural products, and new settlers. Along its banks, in the most hospitable locations, the first cities began to emerge: Quebec, Montreal. These were strongholds from which civilization gradually expanded, always gravitating toward the water. Subsequently, to the west, the Great Lakes took up the mantle. A vast network of freshwater seas once connected extensive territories, opening pathways deep into the continent. These lakes and rivers not only provided water and sustenance, but also served as natural, readily accessible, and secure routes for trade and migration. Centuries have passed. By the late 19th century, as the nation sought to unite, a new, even more powerful and symbolic artery emerged: the Canadian Pacific Railway. Completed in 1885, it was an engineering marvel of its era, laying steel tracks across thousands of kilometers of wilderness and linking the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Yet even this railway, vital for forging a unified nation, was constructed as close as possible to the southern border. Why? For the very same reasons. There were fewer mountains and less permafrost, making construction, while arduous, feasible and economically justifiable. This railway did more than just connect the country. It solidified its southern development trajectory. New cities and towns sprang up along its path, and economic activity became concentrated here. This historical logic persists today. Canada's economy is intrinsically linked to the United States. They are not merely neighbors, but the largest trading partners, with daily trade volumes exceeding $2 billion. Imagine, every single day, not only hundreds of thousands of people, but also millions of tons of goods, including vehicles, timber, oil, and food products, cross the border. Proximity to the American border is not just a geographical fact, it is a strategic advantage. It offers direct access to the world's largest consumer market, to sophisticated logistics chains, and to countless jobs generated by this immense trade. For Canadian businesses, from colossal corporations to small family-run shops, being close to the border means being at the heart of activity, enabling swift and cost-effective delivery of goods, acquisition of raw materials, and exchange of technology. This powerful draw naturally attracts and concentrates populations in border regions, leaving vast northern territories in economic and, consequently, demographic isolation. All of the aforementioned factors, climate, geology, and historical transportation routes, have led to the development of a unique phenomenon in Canada: the urban gravity effect. This means that people are drawn as if by a magnet to existing centers of life. All of Canada's major metropolises, Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Ottawa, are situated within that 60-kilometer strip along the border. These cities, each a potent economic and cultural hub, concentrate over half of the country's entire population. Within 6 major metropolitan areas, consider a young person from a small Canadian village who has just finished school. They look at their village. There might be work at the sawmill, a couple of shops, and a single school. But they dream of more. They desire a good education, an interesting job, access to modern healthcare and cultural experiences. Where will they go? To Toronto or Montreal, of course. Or take a family of immigrants who have just arrived in Canada. They don't choose a place to live at random. They seek cities where their diaspora already exists, where finding work is easier, where children can attend good schools, and where there are hospitals with modern equipment. They will not relocate to a remote northern town offering nothing but a harsh climate and limited opportunities. This is the flywheel effect in action. Large cities become centers of attraction.
They concentrate not only economic activity and employment, but also the best universities, research centers, high-tech companies, major hospitals, advanced transportation infrastructure, theaters, museums, and sports arenas.
This creates a self-sustaining cycle. The more people a city attracts, the more investment it draws, the more jobs are created, the better its infrastructure becomes, and the more people are drawn to move there. New immigrants and internal migrants, those moving within the country, are drawn precisely to areas that already possess the necessary infrastructure and the greatest opportunities for development. This further exacerbates the imbalance in the country's population distribution, making the southern strip increasingly densely populated, while the northern territories become ever more desolate. Developing infrastructure from scratch in harsh northern conditions is 20 times more expensive than simply expanding existing southern megacities, as economists emphasize. Building a hospital in Toronto is one thing. Constructing one in a remote northern settlement, where all materials must be transported via winter roads, and persuading specialists to relocate for exorbitant sums is entirely another. This renders large-scale northern development economically unfeasible. While the government does make some efforts to foster growth in northern territories, supporting mining communities and indigenous peoples, the creation of full-fledged million-plus cities capable of competing with southern centers is simply impossible. This is precisely why Canadians remain within their 160-kilometer strip along the border. It's not a choice, but rather a natural outcome of powerful, almost insurmountable forces of nature, history, and economics. Gazing at this vast uninhabited map of Canada, one can't help but feel a simultaneous sense of sadness and admiration. Sadness that such immense beauty remains unclaimed for human habitation, and admiration for the resilience and pragmatism with which Canadians have established their homes under the given conditions. Thus, the 90% concentration of Canadians near the border is not a coincidence, but the result of a stringent alliance between nature and economics. The climate restricts agriculture, geology hinders construction, and history and trade reinforce a southern orientation. The immense unpopulated territories remain the nation's silent giant, rich in resources but unsuitable for habitation. As demographers summarize, Canada is not empty, it is simply waiting for its time in the permafrost of history.